It is Candace Crog Goldman from quantumhealers.com. And how are you all doing out there today? Today is a take two show with my beautiful friend, Sonya Wilder. Hi, Sonya.
Hi, Candace. Take
Yeah,
two.
so yeah, we did this before, and something really weird happened in only the first 11 minutes of our incredible discussion was recorded. And so both of us are going to be watching that little red dot up there and make sure that we've got recording going on today. But welcome, Sonya, and let's kind of try to redo and talk about what we were going to what we did talk about before. But for the viewing audience out there, and for future listeners of all kinds, what I want to mention is, I'm actually a published author now. I'm very excited about this.
Are you?
I'm only in one chapter, but I'm very excited about this. But what I was, thank you. This show is not about this book, but what I do want to say about what we're talking about today is we're going to talk about all kinds of things, and it's going to be a mishmash, right, thing. So we might be talking about plots of actual fictional things, right? We might be talking about some dreams, some real things that might be dreams that we might turn into a fictional play or even another book of some kind. So this is a disclaimer, right? We are trying a disclaimer this time so that we don't get cut off, because I think that may have been what was going on last time. At least that's what we're surmising. So for those who may be listening in the future, disclaimer, we may be talking just complete fiction here, right? Complete fiction, may not be real, may not be true at all, and we may turn it into a book, right, Sonya?
I'd love to co-author a book with you. Wouldn't that be
Ooh,
so?
wouldn't that be fun? Wouldn't that be so much fun? Okay, so uh, what we're going to talk about is kind of this experience that both you and I had back in November, right? And we're recording this here at the towards the end of December. As a matter of fact, it's the 30th today, date of this recording. I'm not sure when we're going to release this, but we want to talk about this thing that happened to us. And I still have the notes from the last time we talked, and I have it as November 18th that this happened. So I'm going to let you take it from here and describe what happened to you, because I had a similar-ish thing happen to me on the very same night. Take it away, Sonia.
Okay, so this may have been a dream, or it may have been something else. And it was the new Scorpio moon, November 18th, the 17th, 18th, and 19th, that whole time in there, because a full moon lasts for 2.5 days. And I knew that there were some big shifts going on in my body, and I could feel it. And I was feeling, when I go through big shifts, what I call upgrades, I feel discomfort typically. And the reason I feel discomfort usually is because my ego fights it. So, yes. So I was feeling a bunch of discomfort, and I got hit pretty hard on the night of the 17th, moving into the 18th. That was a Thursday. And I knew I had to get to bed really quickly. I knew that my body was done for the day. So I got to bed as quickly as I could. And as I'm literally laying down in my bed, Candace, I'm pulled into, and I'm going to call it a dream. I'm pulled into a dream. It was extremely experiential. It was like I had entered a movie, or we could kind of equate it to maybe even like a psychedelic experience. And I'm pulled into this golden grid, like a matrix grid. It's very gold. It's like as gold as the gold buttons or my gold pyrite medallion. It was so beautiful. I'm suddenly in it, and I can feel every cell of my body in it. My body became this golden grid. And I look down and I realize that it's my light body. It looks etheric. It's completely bright white light. And my arms are extended, and on either hand our fellow quantum healers, who I call my quantum healer besties, because we talk almost every day on our little group thread, on our little communication app. It was my quantum healer bestie, Nina Rafaela Morocco Zara. And on my right hand, it was my quantum healer bestie, Kenneth Baker 3. And we were all connected. And I realized I was holding their hands, and their bodies were also etheric white. I look down at my etheric body, and there is a gold, same as this shimmery gold, even more vibrant, this gold band that looks like a band and comes down in the center in a V shape. And I'm equating it, my mind went back to my childhood in the 1970s of Linda Carter and Wonder Woman and her band, but it was more brilliant than that. It was around my solar plexus, right in front of the solar plexus chakra. And I realized it was the chakra. I look at Nina, and she's got one around her throat, and the same one. And I look at Kenneth, and he has one around the crown of his head. And out in this golden grid are all of these people that I realize that I know. So in front of me are my 3 kids, and they also have like their friends that are significant with them, and I recognize them. And all of a sudden, as I'm looking at the grid, all of these names, like a labeling, like they were labeled, all these names pop up. They're in white, like with a white lettering coming at me so I can read them. And I don't need the names of my kids, but Kenneth had his son, Nina had her daughter, all of their significant others. Then I suddenly see names popping up above white light bodies of fellow quantum healers. All of them. The ones that I recognize were the, like the OGs that we all started, like Allison Coe and Allison and Will Brown and Priscilla, Luis and Hara and Ivy and I mean Iris and like everybody. Then and all of their people, like all of their significant people. Then I realized that all of my significant clients who've been working with me for years, and my best friends who've also had like so many quantum healing sessions with me, et cetera, they're all in front. And I can feel them coming out of my body. I can feel our connection. Now, everybody else was also wearing a gold chakra band at different points of the chakras. Each one had a different chakra enhanced of the 7 main chakras. The matrix golden grid is weaving out, and out in front of me, all of a sudden, your name pops up, Candace. I see in white, Candace Craw Goldman with the hyphen in between your 2 last names. On your right, in front of me, it says Dolores Cannon. On her right is Masaru Emoto. Then her people and his people, your husband, your kids are next to you in front of you. So like it's like we're holding it, and then all of our significant people are also in our group. So we're like in these little group pods, but all in this same soul family, for lack of a better term. Then all of a sudden, in this vision, I see Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And I thought, and the word Kennedy was coming out. So this big name of Kennedy came out above him. And I just kept seeing, hearing, feeling, knowing Kennedy. I was actually kind of confused. I was just like, what is this? Why? Because I'm not political. And I'll put that disclaimer out here. I'm not a politically active person. I'm not allowed to be by soul contract. I came here to bring in neutrality and balance with the polarities. So I'm not for any party at all. I'm not affiliated. I'm like, what is this? He turns around. He's got an etheric light body, no chakra gold band on, but all of a sudden he becomes like he becomes like a bodybuilder. And all these muscle ridges pump out. And he starts to speak to us. And as he's speaking, he doesn't have the warbled voice, but all of a sudden I see his father, his uncle, and Ethel Kennedy's name was next to that. And I thought, who's Ethel Kennedy? And then I heard grandmother. I didn't know that. Then I see all of his people, all their people, and it just keeps waving and waving and waving. And he turns around And he starts speaking to us and he says, I want you all to hold this. And behind him, I suddenly see Donald Trump. He's a light body. And I could see him with the name above, I know, but the hair popped out so that I would recognize that it was his character. I, no, he's not wearing any chakra band either. All of us as quantum healers, we were the only ones who were wearing a gold chakra band. And I did realize that recently, Candace, when I like reflected on this again, because we did this before, and I'm like, are there any other details that I've missed? None of them had a chakra band on. Only quantum healers had a chakra. I feel like that's significant.
I don't remember you saying that last time. Where was my band? Do you remember my band?
Your band was on the heart. Your band was in
You
front of
did
the
tell
heart.
me that last time.
I
And,
did. And Dolores's was on her crown.
and
The
that
re-
makes, this just makes so much
the
sense.
spiritual researcher, you're a Leo in this life, which is ruled by the heart. The Leo rules the heart, on the
Yep,
heart.
absolutely. My
And
goodness.
and I thought, okay, that's so interesting. By the way, I do recall your husband Tom's was actually on the root chakra, the stability, the grounding.
That absolutely makes sense. Thank you for that. I know you didn't say that last time.
I didn't,
That's
and I've asked for clarity on these things. I've like reflected a lot on this and asked for
maybe
more.
that's part of why we're redoing this.
Maybe, and
I do think so because I've got to think about it a little bit too. So we had a dry run and now we're talking about it.
yeah, I mean, I've asked. I'm like, I need more details. Give me more details on this because, that old saying, the devil's in the details. I mean, it's true. I need to know the significance because again, the purpose of this is to bring us into a greater level of ascension because we're moving
Mhm.
towards disclosure. We're moving
Yep.
towards contact.
Yeah,
So
we are.
we are, and it's coming up so much since Pluto entered Aquarius on November 19th. And remember, Pluto entered Aquarius on November 19th, and this was
The
literally.
age of Aquarius. I mean, we've been talking about it our whole lives, right? The mamas and the papas. I mean, come on.
I know. And that was actually the Broadway show Hair in the 1960s that did the Age of Aquarius. That came from the Broadway show.
Goosebumps.
So yeah,
Goosebumps. They're all
totally.
over me right now. This is,
Yes.
yes, I'm
And it was
born
the
at this time for a
fifth
reason.
dimension. Yeah, the fifth dimension. They gave that song to them because they weren't popular with Motown. And so that song was so popular with Hair. If you look up the history of that, because I grew up listening to that record album of the fifth dimension. My mom had
Yeah.
it. And
Yeah.
that is ushering this in. So I'm like, okay, this is really significant. So I'm feeling so emotional. I'm so emotional because I did open my eyes. My room was completely dark. I mean, it was the middle of the night. My room was gold. It was gold. Everything was gold. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is saying to us, and this is all telepathic, he's saying to
Yep.
it's important that humanity sees the difference between the toxic masculine, Donald Trump was representing that as the archetype, and the divine masculine, the sacred masculine. And I was just sobbing, sobbing. I was physically sobbing. I was sobbing in the dream, and everybody was so emotional. And then he said, all right, now change it. And I felt through that gold band, my kidneys and adrenals, which is a power center for the solar plexus chakra, all of a sudden began to vibrate. I was in all this pain, Candace, when it began to vibrate. My body was hurting. The right side of my body was hurting. It was too much frequency for this physical body. And all of a sudden, we all powered up that gold chakra band, and the whole gold grid changed to this vibrant heart chakra green.
I knew that's why you were wearing that color.
It is. It's why I'm wearing this color. I don't really wear this very often, but it is why. And it was so much for my body. I just remember that it was so much for my body. It was so much for my being. I remember feeling like all of my molecules were expanding and the density of my body had left, but my ego was holding on to what it knew. And so it was causing pain. And then Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said to all of us, okay, as the grid was now green, he said, now hold it. He turns back around we're all facing, and I realized, Candace, I've realized since what we were facing Earth, Gaia Sophia. It was directed towards Earth. We were just above her and a little bit outside in a higher realm. And then I look to Nina. She looks at me on my left. She smiles and nods her head. I look to Kenneth and I'm sobbing. I look to him. He looks at me and all of a sudden he made his extensions pop out and his beard and mustache pop out. It was almost like his joke to me, kind of, is what I realize now, because I knew who he was. And he said, with that gold band on, he said, "We've got this."
Mhm.
And it lasted. And then I went flying off into other realms. And when I woke up, I was still in it. My body was in extreme pain, especially on the right side. And I had to go get my phone because I had to tell Nina and Kenneth in our group thread. And that's when Kenneth sent me the screenshot from your Facebook post talking about your dream. So there it is.
All right. So let me give
Are we
my
still
part
recording?
of my
I'm
dream
not.
experience.
I want to make sure we're still recording. We are. We're still.
Yeah, we are. I keep looking at it. I keep looking at it this time. So on the same night, or on the 18th anyway, and those of you on Facebook can go look this up, but I had the craziest thing happen, and it was very golden as well. And I do have some experiences that I don't share, but I share a good number of them, in part because I try to make connections, or other people make connections. And this is great because me sharing what I experienced, Kenneth read it and went, "You got to talk to Sonya," and then she actually called me or texted me anyway, and she was not doing well. She was still in it. Now, for me, I was not in pain, and it didn't last. It didn't last 2 days, but it did last an entire night. So for me, here's what my experience was: is I woke up. I don't even remember what time it was, but I went to bed. I typically go to bed early because I wake up really early. And I woke up for the first time, and it may have been 11 or 12 or something like that. And I woke up because of light, like because there was light in my room. And I woke up and it was golden light. And at first, you know how when you wake up, you try to figure out what's going on. And I'm like, okay, is it the moon? Did somebody turn a light on? I mean, what's going on here? And I open up my eyes, and what I realize is the light is coming from a golden cloud that is above my bed. And so I'm in a bedroom by myself because most nights I sleep on the side of the house where my father's bedroom is, so that we don't disturb Tom, who's in the master bedroom on the other side of the house. So most nights that works because my husband is nice enough to let me have my dad in the house. I try to at least get him to have a quiet night's sleep with all of the activity it takes to take care of somebody who's 94 in the middle of the night. And sometimes that's multiple times a night. Anyway, dad's doing great, so not to worry about that. But so I wake up and I realize that there is this light, and it's coming, like it's right over the bed, and it's a golden cloud. And in this golden cloud, which is like emitting light, even though you could see through it, it was a little bit translucent. There were symbols, and they were something like light language symbols, something like rune type symbols in the cloud. Now, I have seen symbols like that before in other dreams and other experiences and they're usually like in flowing, like information coming down in a curtain like this. And sometimes I see that right before sleep. These symbols, and they're always golden, and they're usually three-dimensional and very beautiful. What was interesting about this golden cloud was the symbols were very carbon looking. Um, but a lot of y'all know that I'm an artist and a painter, and I really like the human mark stuff, and I really like very organic lines and carbon and sometimes rough, right? Like kind of rough edges. I'm not into the photorealism at all. That I also take photos and I love that too, but the two are very different. My paintings are nothing photographic. My paintings and drawings are far more visceral, and my photos are my photos. Anyway, these symbols reminded me a little bit about kind of my own markings, like with graphite. The edges were very organic, and I looked at them. The symbols were not in lines, they weren't in sheets, they weren't moving, they were just like suspended within this cloud. And they weren't even in straight lines, they were like haphazard, they were just kind of all over. And I was like, what even is that? And I know that I've had a number of strange experiences my whole life, so I didn't get up out of bed, I didn't look at the clock really or anything like that. I know that sometimes that breaks it, right? Then the whole thing stops. So I just laid there for the longest time wondering what it was that I was looking at, right? And I had no idea. The symbols didn't move. I didn't get a sense of anything. It was just this beautiful, the gold was so beautiful, the gold. And after a while, I just kind of drifted to sleep, and I don't really recall what I was dreaming when and again, this might all just be fiction that we're talking about. We might write a book about this. Anyway, I woke up again, and I immediately, because this experience was I've never had anything like that, right? And the experience was so interesting, I woke up again after what I guess is about 2 hours. And I open up my eyes, and the crazy thing is, because usually these experiences, you have them and then they're over with, and then you ponder and you think about it or whatever. But I open up my eyes up after sleeping for a little while, and that cloud is still there. And I'm shocked about that. I am completely shocked, because I'm like, holy cow, it's still there. What does that mean? What is this? What is it? And again, I study it for the longest time, waiting to sort of be inspired, pondering it, thinking about it, looking at the images, seeing if anything sparks anything. Not really, mostly just being in wonder and in awe. I am not in any sort of pain, nothing like what you are experiencing. I'm just like, what is this? And the gold, again, it was so beautiful. It was so beautiful. And I almost felt like glitter was coming down from it and landing on me and in me. And it just, the whole room was golden and beautiful, but the cloud was very, like, I could see the edges of the cloud, right? It was up there. And study it again for the longest time, just really, even marveling that I was awake, studying it for so long, and then once again falling asleep and waking up the next day. And then I wrote about it, and I wrote about it on Facebook. And that is how you and I came to understand that we both had this golden experience on the exact same day, which is crazy. And then we started talking about it. But this kind of goes even further. And we've already been talking about half an hour, but let's continue for about another half hour if we can, because the part that just threw me for a huge loop was when you started talking about RFKJ, right? So let me start by saying that I have been following that man for quite some time, and he became very important to me during the early days of 2020, when the world was going insane, and I was watching what was happening. And hard days. Those were hard days, because even the people who I aligned with very much, when I tried to talk to them about what was happening, of course, we realized and we learned very quickly that we were very censored, and we couldn't really talk about things on social media because it wasn't allowed. But I I just was in a huge place of knowing that what was happening to us wasn't small, it wasn't brief, and especially the day that they came out and said 2 weeks to slow the spread. I lost it. I really lost it because something really came out of me. And to step back for a moment, for those who may not have heard me say this before, because I do talk about it a lot, my mother was born in 1927 on the border. Well, she was actually born in Czechoslovakia to Czech Russian mother and a German father. And they ended up on the German side. Long story short, my grandfather was killed when my mother was just a young girl. My mother grew up without a mother too. Her mother, early mother, died of tuberculosis. She was raised by relatives, but she went through the war and not in a good way. As a matter of fact, at one point, because part of her family was Jewish, at one point they actually were thinking about committing group suicide because they were hungry, there wasn't enough food, it was a terrible situation. My mother actually was part of stopping all of that so that I'm even here. But as a young girl in this house where I sit right now, she would tell me stories about the manipulation and the control and the propaganda. And the thing that she would say all the time, she would say this thing in German. She'd say, Candy, was they would tell you is für ein Sicherheit, für ein Sicherheit. This is nur für ein Sicherheit, which means don't worry, this is only for your safety. This is only for your health. This is only for your safety. It's only just now. It's only just for a little while. And she told me how that roped all of these people into this massive, horrible other thing, right? That they were being brought into. So when I heard all of that, and I was so upset about it before they ever even start talking about these things. I knew they were coming, and I was very upset about it all. And I remember, and to Tom's credit, of course, he's very supportive of me now, but the day that they all said it, the 2 weeks, and he's like, it's just 2 weeks. I'm like, don't you understand? This isn't 2 weeks. This is nothing like 2 weeks. That's just what they say today. And it's going to be more and more and more and more. And as we're even saying now, here in 2024, the very tail end of it, they're trying, round two with a different kind of V, shall we say? So people out there pay attention. And anyway, I was really, really upset. But here we had RFKJ, who seemed to be on our side, right? And that summer, he and Del Bigtree, of Informed Consent Action and Network, and the High Wire, they held an event right here in Kansas, which was like, what? Like right north of Wichita. What? And it was crazy. I couldn't believe that they came here because we needed connection with people, right? You weren't allowed to anything, and I mean, supposedly I was a rebel from the beginning. I never did this. I never did the 6 feet. I never did any of it. I never did any of it. I was, I'd be like, I'd call my friends. I'm like, I'll meet you at the grocery store. I'll bird dog for you. I'll go in first. You don't have to do this, and I mean, from the very beginning, and it was crazy, but they had an event, and they said there's only room for 300. Well, I think like 600 people bought tickets, and they overflow. Half of it was outside. There was a good part inside. Here was the crazy part. Do you know what they actually even said? I mean, think about these days. They're trying to memory hole a lot of this, but we knew the date, we knew the time. Do you know what they said? We're not going to tell you the venue until 24 hours, or maybe it might have been 36 or 48 hours beforehand, because we don't want it to blow up, literally or figuratively, right?
Know that.
Right? Yeah. They said, we're going to do it purchase your tickets, get your thing and everything. We're not telling you the address. We're not telling you the place until just right beforehand. So we waited weeks, not even knowing where it's going to be. We knew it was driving distance from Wichita. So we went up there. I went up there alone, but I definitely met and saw some friends up there. And on the way in, I actually Del Bigtree was taking a break, and I walked right up to him, and I got to have my picture taken with him. It was just perfect timing. It was so great, and I've got like these great pictures, and it was so fantastic. But I knew that RFKJ was going to be there, and it happened to be that there's vendors and food and products and stuff like that. And I was backstage between a couple speeches, and I saw RFKJ come out of the green room. And there were some handlers and some people talking and all of that, but he was just kind of by himself, just right outside the door of the green room. And I remember just kind of taking my time and just studying him, because I had a moment. I was this close to him. I was maybe 20 feet from him. And I was just looking at him, and I was trying to read his energy. I was trying to read his thoughts. I was trying to get anything from him at all. And he was very guarded, and he's very good. He's very good at being very statesman-like. And the biggest thing that I came away with at that time was this man knows way more than he's talking about. Way more about what's going on right now. Again, 2020, at this time, it was probably early summer or maybe midsummer 2020. I need to actually look up the date, but it was, warm weather 2020. And what I mean by knowing more than he's talking about is not just what was going on in 2020, but what's going on with all of his family, how and why his father was killed, how and why his uncle was killed, what the hell's going on, who are these people trying to take over everything, right? And being in charge of everything. And I'm just trying to figure him out. Is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? He just knows so much. And I think, he seems like a good guy. But he can't share so much, and he's trying to hold it all together. And that's the big sense I got from him. So I was a big fan of his, followed him, actually went up to Kansas City. I'm going to forget the date then too, but when he was, before he had announced his running mate, but he'd already announced going, trying to be, president, putting his bid in for the presidency. And one of the craziest things happened at this point, at that event. Again, it was another health freedom. There's a Kansas health freedom group that I'm a member of, and they sponsored another event, and Brian Hooker was there, and again, Dell was there, and it's all about health freedom, that we get to decide what's going on with our bodies. It's just very basic, right? And but he was there, and he gave a great speech and all of that. And I'd been following him for a while, but one of the best, most amazing things is one of the fellas there, he's since passed away. He called for prayer for Bobby's safety, and the entire auditorium bowed their head in prayer for his safety. And then when that prayer was over, God, it was amazing. He looked up and he said, I know a lot of people want pictures. And he looked around and he looked at his handlers and he thinks, I think we can do this. He says, let's just get a picture. Are you ready for this, Sonya? Let's get a picture with everybody here.
Really?
Individually.
What? Oh, I thought you meant a group. He did it
individually. I have a picture of him with his arm around me.
I know you do. You sent it to me, but
everybody who went there got one. I was nothing special.
That's astounding.
The energy going through that room right there, because we had just prayed, right? We had just prayed for his safety. And he said, here's how we're going to do it. And he set it up. He says, you're all just going to file, and you're going to hand your phone to my handler, and they're going to take 2 or 3 images. And then it's just going to be like this. I think we can do, everybody. Did the whole auditorium.
Gosh.
It was astonishing. It was really It was amazing. So that happened there. And the whole time I'm watching and thinking about what's going on here with his presidency, I'm having an inkling or a thought or a supposition or an energy signature, probably is one of the better ways of describing it, that he's going to quit and become Trump's VP pick or something, that's what I thought. And then when he picked Shanahan, who I didn't know anything about her, but there's some interesting things about her in Health Freedom. If you people don't know who she is, check out what happened to her and her young child. But anyway, uh, I thought for sure they would team up. And then when Trump picked Vance, I thought, well, I guess I got that wrong. It seemed so weird because I'm like, it just seemed like they were going to team up. It just seemed like they were going to team up. I would tell people, I mean, not online, not socially, not publicly, of course, because of all of the, there's so many people who just lose their minds around politics. But I'm, using my own intuition. And I'm just thinking, I just thought they were going to team up. And then, of course, after the fact, they are teaming up, just not in the way that it seemed, that my little reading of the energy could work. So I'm still watching all of that. So you and I were talking about all of this, but and it's still recording.
I know, I just checked.
Still recording. In the last time we talked about this, we started saying that and we shared with each other that we had Trump dreams. And I had a dream of President Trump. And I had told that in the recording that didn't happen. And I'm happy to hear anything you might have to say, but I also have this absolutely its own dream about President Trump that happened in 2020. And it really wasn't a dream. It was it was a dream for a while until, and I'll go ahead and tell it. So I was in this house. So this is my childhood home. My father had already been moved to our farm in Leon. He was already living there, but I had a dream somewhere in, again, early summer 2020, about all the same time all of this other stuff was happening. And I was here fixing him dinner. He was sitting in the family room in his big old chair when I hear a knock on the door. I'm in the kitchen. I come out. This is just a regular dream so far. And I look out the sliding glass door, which is right there. And I see President Trump with two men in black behind him, and he's standing there at the door. And that instantly, I mean, boom, I'm like, this is not real. I must be dreaming. So it instantly became a lucid dream. I knew I was dreaming. I knew that this isn't real because President Trump is not coming to my father's house in Wichita, Kansas. This is not happening. And but I'm like, well, what is this about? I'd never dreamed about what? I'm dreaming about President Trump. What? So I go to the door and I open up the door. And he's just so polite, so kind. All three of them come in. No, I think he just comes in and the two dudes just stand by the door. And I'm thinking that's probably right. They're guarding the door or whatever. But he comes in, closes the door. My dad's looking up at him. And he turns to my father and he greets my father and he says, sir, I understand that you are an Air Force fighter pilot veteran. And my father says, yes, sir. And they just have this very brief exchange like this. And President Trump shakes his hand and takes a few sentences to express his heartfelt gratitude for my father's defending of the country in the way that he did in the Air Force. And it was all just very polite like that. And I'm just standing back. I think I probably have a dish towel in my hand, and I'm just like, what is even going on here? I had no idea, but I knew I was dreaming. And after they have their exchange, Dad sits down and he looks at me and he says, can I speak with you in the other room? I'm like, okay. And I knew that means like, I'm going to learn now something. I'm going to learn what's happening here. And we come into and we sit right where I'm sitting right now. So this is the formal living room. And President Trump and I sit together on much different furniture, and it was a much different looking place, but but I'm sitting in the exact place where this all happened. And he looked at me and he took a deep breath and he folded his hands and he just looked at me in the eyes. And then while he looked at me in the eyes, we're just meeting eyes. I'm just waiting to hear what this is about, what's happening. He completely morphs into a different presenting human being. It was slow. It wasn't instant. It wasn't anything abrupt, but he sort of morphs into this completely different being. And this being is a beautiful young man. He almost looked Native American. He had a very square jaw. He had deep blue eyes. He had dark, straight, long hair to here. He was much, much younger. He was probably 25, 30. But the whole time he never changes position. He's like leaning forward. He's got his hands folded in a very gesture of, nothing like this, or no hand things, or his hands are kind of folded in his lap, and he leans forward now in this new persona. And I look at him and it's sort of sparkly, and I'm like, well, I don't know what exactly I'm looking at here. At that point, the communication becomes kind of packets of downloads, telepathic. It's not words anymore. And what I understand, and a lot of this has, it's big pieces of information that don't have sentences attached to them, right? So some of the information is, first of all, it's definitely time travel. There's definitely time travel happening here. There is, and I don't know that I can answer this exactly, but this is either a higher level, an evolved persona, or maybe an evolved or future life of Donald Trump that has come from the future to this time in 2020, and he wants to deliver a message, but more than that, it's to make a request. And what that was, will you help us, or will you help, or will you assist, or will you be a part of this? And this, whatever this was, seemed golden. It seemed expansive. It seemed connected. It seemed like the upliftment of humanity into a new octave, into a new place. And it was this sort of question. And of course, my response is, because it was very heartfelt, it was, that's what I want too, of course. And when this was all happening, what I do know and what I realize, and what I would like to say to all of you quantum healers out there, was this wasn't to me as an individual. This was to quantum healers. Quantum healers, from the beginning, I've always been about let's help each other. All the way back in 2008, when it was very weird to think of anything else than another quantum healer was your direct competition, which always blew my mind. Even back then, we've gotten much, much better, shall we say, in all these years. But it wasn't just to me. So it's for you all out there too, you heart-centered quantum healing people who know that the focus on love and upliftment for the individual and the individual's sovereignty, freedom, and choice is everything. I don't know exactly what that means practically, meaning I'm not going to give you a list of things to do or anything like that. I wasn't given one myself. But I did want to fully, talk about that experience. And I didn't tell anybody about this experience for quite a while. I think I told my husband, and then it probably was years later, and I have told a few people. To release this publicly was unthinkable in 2020, with the vitriol against that man, with the absolute. To this day, there's still those who have, as we know, there are people who are trying to take the man out. I'm sure even now, before he moves into office. So to release this is interesting. I'm like you. I am not affiliated with any single party. I have voted. I do vote in elections. I have voted both ways and no ways. So I am not on any sort of fence, and I won't go down my in my individual thinking about some of those things. But then you said that you also had more experiences, and I'll just put an addendum here because I know we're running out of time. I ended up having multiple more experiences and multiple more dreams that were lucid dreams that I'm going to hold on to for a little while a lot of this plays out in what's going on with humanity right now as we move into 2025, and the absolutely the disclosure and the other things that are going on. I'm going to hold on to some of that for now, but I'm going to turn it over to you and see what you have to say about any of that, and take it away.
Okay, so first of all, I want to share, because I'm here, I'm being prompted by the guides, that I also need to add that I have been told throughout all of my day and my night existence that, and I'm going to put this out here because they're telling me to, that this second term for Trump, they're telling me he's not going to finish it. They're telling me that and they're not telling me why he's not going to finish it, but they're telling me he's not going to finish it. They also tell me that RFK Jr. is going to get into the White House as the president. They tell me he's going to be the next president. They've been telling me, yes, they've been telling me that since he started campaigning, before he joined Trump. I didn't tell you that last time, but
No, you didn't.
we ran out of time. But since we have more time, yeah, they've been telling me that. And I wasn't paying attention to him at all, Candace, not at all. I knew that and I'm in here in Oregon. I'm a part of the Health Freedom group as well. I
Great.
joined that in 2020. So I did see all of your pictures with Dell, and then you sent me the RFK Jr. picture, and I knew that he was a part of that. And I was aware of that. I know he's an attorney. I know he's been fighting Big Ag. I'm being a nutritionist.
Yeah.
I've kept a tab on that aspect of him. I also am an astrologer. I also know what his chart is. He has a really, really powerful chart. He has a Capricorn stellium in the 6th house, the house of health and service. So I've been like keeping tabs on that. But they tell me that he is going to be the next president, is what they're saying.
Wow.
Repeatedly. When they say it at least 3 times, I know it's a real thing. When they say that Trump, and I've asked them, is Trump going to be assassinated? They say, no, he's not going to.
Interesting.
But they say he's not going to finish this term.
I can see that.
Yes.
I can absolutely see that. You're aware of the Ingersoll Lockwood books, yeah?
No, I'm not. Tell me about that.
Oh my gosh, goosebumps. So I'm gonna blow the dates too, because I'm not good with remembering numbers, but let's say it's the 1930s or something like that. But long, long time ago, before I was even born, there was an author named Ingersoll Lockwood, and he wrote several books, and one of them is called The Last President. And it's all about a man who's a real estate mogul who lives in New York, who ends up being president. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You need to look this up.
Okay. All right.
And then listen to this. Listen to one of his other books. And I'm because I have not read the books, and I don't want to misrepresent them. It's called The Last Adventures of Baron Trump.
Oh, I have heard of that.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, Okay.
Yeah, but this is all this, so I think this wraps into the time travel thing.
Yes, I agree.
And there's just correlations that are too hard to deny. And there's some other people who are talking about, just read something this morning about how when time travel becomes completely available and real in the future, um, and just take this with a grain of salt. Again, we're talking about things we might write about in a fiction book, but some random person that I happened to see on social media was talking about when time travel becomes literally possible for so many people. A lot of what they end up doing is traveling back into time and then kind of rescuing loved ones and family members because they miss them so much. But then they muck up the timelines. And then things, it's like the butterfly effect, and some people don't end up in the right place with the right thing and the things going on. So this can, whoa, as the cloud goes over,
Love that.
as the cloud goes over, this could be considered part of the Mandela effect. It could be considered, a deja vu. It could be there's a lot of, and then of course, many of us in the quantum healing world have been talking about the collapsing of timelines for a while. And of course, moving into ascension and into, the next expansion of humanity. So there's a lot of this all at play to think about.
Totally. That was a fascinating piece. I'm so
Yeah.
glad you shared that. That was now I'm starting to get more pieces of this puzzle. And
Yeah.
that was important. I feel that was really important.
Yeah.
Okay, so in 2020, when we started Universal Talks, his wonderful little talk show baby that we do together sometimes, but it's his. We were he was putting me under BQH. And then I was channeling. He was asking me key questions. And we were talking about President Trump at the time because it was 2020 and all this was going on.
Sure.
It was, and he said, do you think that we should include a lot of this information you channeled on Donald Trump, that he's a light worker and all of that? And it came out. And I said, I think we should, but I think we need to put that disclaimer where this is not a political decision. We're just channeling information. In that time span of, because I think we did probably like maybe 4 or 5 shows over the course of 2 months. And that was in the summer, in the heart of the summer, when you were meeting with Del Bigtree and doing all of that with the health freedom movement. I had I had a lucid dream. It was so lucid, Candace. And I'm suddenly observing. I'm in a street and I'm observing. And from my left comes Donald Trump. Now, he didn't have a sport coat on, but he had his white sports shirt and he had the red tie and he had the hair and all of that. And he's walking and I'm supposed to be observing and I'm observing. And I realize it's becoming almost animated. And he's walking and, doing that whole thing. And he walks into a building. But I can see there's windows on the building. I can see him walking through the building, and all of a sudden he comes out and he's still walking, but he looks different. His appearance has changed. I have forgotten the details of what changed in his appearance. His body changed. It was still him. He walks into the second building. It turns out it's a hospital. He comes out, he's on a gurney. He's being wheeled on the gurney. He's lying horizontal on it. There's a nurse and then another man in white, and they're pushing him. And he's again looking at me with that pouty face. And then he goes into another building. There's a third building. And I recognize the significance of like the third dimension and things like that. He goes into the third building and he comes out completely different. He had shapeshifted.
Mm.
And I was asking, what is the significance of this? Because I realized I was lucid in the dream. And I asked, what's the significance of this? And the word shapeshifter came out. And I got sucked back into my body. And like, I shuddered as I got sucked back into my body. And I thought, what in the world was that?
Wow.
Shapeshifter. Okay. That was interesting. And I just kind of sat with it. I did tell Kenneth. I told him, and he was like, "Oh my gosh." And other than that, I've just kind of like held, just like you held onto your lucid dream. I just held on to it because I didn't want to talk about him. And that time was so controversial. I lost
Sure.
so many friends as it was
Sure.
my
Yeah.
decision not complying. And I just continued to live the way I did. I couldn't teach yoga because I'm a yoga teacher. I couldn't teach yoga. They literally closed down my gym and my yoga studios and they went bankrupt at the end of that year. I cleared out my living room and I started teaching class in my living room. I'm like, I'm not complying.
God bless you.
I'm like, how, I mean, I didn't vote for the guy. I'm like, how in the world am I going to share this with anybody? But this is really significant. I could share it with my quantum healers. Those are the only people. We were the only people I could share any of this with was quantum healers. I could not share this with my parents. My dad and I
Right?
were sparring over this. My dad and I were fighting over this. I'd lost who I thought were healer colleagues who were not quantum healers. Most
Right.
sell off. And I'm like,
Oh, sure.
I
We
can't take
lost we lost a percentage of our membership who didn't want we were asking questions about all of it. We were asking questions because we can talk freely on our community. And there were people who just left stomping. Just and I'm like, you're the people who you're talking. I mean, it was just astonishing to see the people who couldn't handle differences of approach, shall we say.
it's like the last big Piscean age. It has to be one way. Like I'm going to say these hypothetical words: reptilian, draconian. Everything has to be the same so that we can have control. In astrology, it's Saturnian, it's Saturn, discipline, control, order. I have to have it this way. I have to know. And it was ending. It was like the last big hurrah of the Piscean age going, let's just vomit out the last of our judgment, and none of you can be any different than male and female, prototype A, prototype B. And of course, I am going to just loosely play out to this. In the beginning of the Aquarian age, I think we've gone sometimes a little bit too far with some of the strangeness that we need to express as a result, almost like a rebellion. Pluto's in Aquarius now. I'm going to be as queer as possible over here. And there's no judgment to that. I just think it's an observation. It's a hilarious observation to me to notice.
Hey, if there are cat litter boxes in the elementary schools in Wichita, Kansas, you know the world has changed.
Totally. And it's only going to get weirder, especially in 2025, as the rest of the outer planets go from Earth water signs to fire air signs.
Yes.
It's going to be dramatic. We are going to see some crazy, crazy unique differences. It's going to change. It's going to change.
Well, I think you and I have a lot to talk about. Again, this is December 30th, 2024. There's only a couple more days in this year. And we're hot and heavy in the drone situation, right? And I think all of that is playing into our golden experiences. I know I mentioned last time we tried to record this that I'd just gotten back from the Mandela Effect conference in Nashville, Tennessee, that happened 2 days after the election, which just I've always thought was just so humorous that yes, oh sure, I'm gonna travel many states away. I mean, who even knew it was going to happen during that time? But I ended up launching into it with friends and colleagues, and so happy to go because the people who showed up there really believe in this expansion of humanity and how we have a choice in sort of the creation of what we're stepping into next. So who would you rather be with at this time? So I went all in, and here's what's really interesting of all of the speakers, and there was, 3 or 4 every day, I think, and it was a 4 or 5 day event. The amount of people using the word golden timeline, golden age, golden experience, golden Pippa Una, beautiful woman who just wrote the timeline, the Timeline Jumper's Guide to Financial Freedom. Just wrote a cool book. She's written The Rivers of Time. She's just a really fascinating author. And she stood up in her presentation wearing sort of a gold jacket and a gold thing and just talked about gold all over the place. And to have all of that to reference as well. And then, I'm not, we don't have time to talk about it right now, but much of my continued dreams in 2020 have a golden theme, and I hope to talk with you about that maybe sometimes later in January when we have a chance to hook up again, because we probably have more to talk about after these, the golden light orbs that are all over the planet that growing.
Want to show
up to
Candace, I want to show the written light language.
Oh, okay.
From our golden experience that we had separately, but we were a part of it. I literally this.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
In all of
so close to what some of what I put together in my same thing. Yep. Or very similar, shall we say.
Very similar. Amazing. This was so fantastic.
Good. There's so much more to talk about. I love connecting like this. So for you quantum healers or you viewers out there, if you've had any experience that aligns with anything that we've talked about here, please consider sharing it below. We would love to hear about it. And, we'll continue this conversation in the future. Thank you so much, Sonya. All right. For those of you out there who are in service to others, do you know that quantumhealers.com welcomes all of you? Reiki healers, yoga teachers, life coaches, quantum healers, doesn't matter who taught you. Tarot card readers, all of you, you're welcome to join us. We're a guru-free community. What does that mean? It means I don't tell you what to do. Sonya doesn't tell you what to do. Nobody tells you what to do. You can you can have your own thoughts, your own practices, and we share across the board this way, horizontally. There is not one person making any rules, telling everyone what to do. Isn't that refreshing? That's what our group is all about, quantumhealers.com. Consider joining us. We would love to have you. All right, Sonya. Till next time. Bye, everybody. Thanks for joining us.